What do educators need to know to prepare students for the age of knowledge creation and breakthrough thinking? What trends and challenges must be managed and overcome to ensure success? Find out next in the chat room. In DoDEA Schools, our focus and energy addresses a question that is critical to our mission. How can we create the conditions necessary to ensure highest student achievement for all students? With us in the studio to address the impact of technology in a rapidly changing world is Gary Marx, president of the Center for Public Outreach in Vienna, Virginia. The center provides counsel on future-oriented leadership, communication, education, community, and democracy. As a futurist, Mr. Marx has directed studies such as Future-Focused Leadership and 16 Trends, Their Profound Impact on Our Future. He's the author of numerous books and articles. Recently, he provided training to DoDEA principals and assistant principals across the Pacific. Welcome, Gary. It's nice to have you in the studio.
Frank, it is really good to be with you and to be working with DoDEA Schools. I enjoyed the work we did together in the Pacific. I've enjoyed the work that we have done together in the Mediterranean and in Germany. Have great admiration for the DoDEA Schools.
Well, it's always our pleasure to host you. Gary, what are some of the trends that you talk about in your research, 16 trends, that we know are going to have a profound impact on schools and education?
Well, as you know, Frank, there's a lot of discussion about data-driven decisions. And I spend years spotting trends. And try to be a scholar and try to be interested in virtually everything from medicine to the automotive industry to the timber industry to education and everything else. And try to see tendencies, forces that are sweeping across the landscape. And often when I talk with educators and ask them what the trends are, they'll say, well, we don't have enough budget, or that we have high standards that we're trying to meet. Mm-hmm. But I like to back off to those massive trends that impact the entire planet and then get people to think about what the implications might be for education. Some of those trends, Frank, are the aging of society. And when you look at that on a planetary basis, there are certain parts of the world, generally the Western world, where the old are outnumbering the young. In the United States proper, our population is rising primarily because of immigration and the children of immigrants. But you go to some other parts of the world and you find these huge increases in the youth population, and there are not that many people who are older. And it's all a matter of, how many kids are born and how long people live. So aging is one of the trends. Another is diversity. Still another is deals with ethics. Certainly in this post-Enron world, ethics, very, very important. And getting it right when we think of that spectrum all the way from arrogance on one end to empathy on the other, we need to have confidence. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that as educators, for example, we're serving others. And that's true of anyone in any profession, especially in government. Others include planetary security, the need to take care of this planet. Still others involve the move toward interdependence. We really are interdependent. We really need to understand diplomatic skills. And of course, I think that's one of the many areas where the DoDEA schools really excel, is in diplomatic skills. Technology, of course, and I could go through a number of these trends, but that's just a starter set of some of the 16 trends we write about in our book.
Well, and it's, as you say, it's just a handful that you've given us, but it's overwhelming, Gary. 16 trends that are going to impact. Where does a school district or any organization begin to address them?
Well, I've seen a number of school districts who have used these trends to stimulate a community-wide discussion, or a discussion among the administrative team, or a discussion among all the educators in the system or at a certain location. They'll take a look at these trends, and then they will engage either the staff or the broader community in thinking about what the implications of these trends are for how we run our schools, how we operate our schools and school systems, for what students need to know and be able to do, for economic growth and development, quality of life in a community. And once they've done that, then we come back and ask them to identify issues that they face and sort those issues according to, one, the probability that they'll become major issues, and then if they become major issues, then what impact will they have? And then we finally get to what we call gap analysis. And we ask people to put aside any budget constraints, to put aside any of the rules that have been in place for a long time, and just dream about the system we really need to get students ready for life in a global knowledge information age. I guess I would even call it an age of knowledge creation and breakthrough thinking. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how this process brings people along and creates a sense of ownership. People can say, you know, as I look at these trends, I can see how we need to get connected to those forces impacting the whole of society, because those are forces that will impact our students' lives, and certainly they impact the institution.
Now, you just had a chance to go through this drill with many of our principals and assistant principals from Korea, Japan, Okinawa, and Guam. How did that go? What did you find out from your work with them, and what did you learn from them that gives you hope that maybe we're on the right track in some of these cases?
One thing I generally find from DoDEA principals, other DoDEA administrators, teachers, and others who work in the system, that these are people who made a decision to join the school system. You know, it was a conscious decision, because most of them have left home, wherever that was, whether it was in the middle of the country or somewhere else, and they've joined the system. In some cases, they might be people who live in the area where the particular school or school system is located. But they've made a choice, you know, to try something new. Mm-hmm. And so people are extremely excited about the idea of creating the education system we need to prepare students for the future. One indication of that, Frank, is that DoDEA has taken what it does on a day-to-day basis, and in the center of its planning chart, you know, it has these sort of concentric circles showing the very things that the DoDEA schools do. But then the other thing you did is take a big circle and draw it around all those things that happen every day. And that circle represents the world outside. And we look at the forces, you know, within the world that impact education. And it also, I think, forces the system, as it should all systems, to take a look at the world in which our kids are going to live their lives. So I think it's brilliant, and it really puts everything in perspective. And so I find lots of energy, and I find a great deal of experience and commitment among DoDEA educators. It's all there.
I was there with you, and I know that our principals appreciated you leading them through that whole thought process. What did you learn anything, or did you help principals think through some things that we need to take a serious look at as we move down the road?
There are some things we talked about. One is, because there is this wealth of experience, and because DoDEA schools are so connected to other cultures. You know, the schools exist in other cultures. And in the United States, we're, quote, a multicultural nation. But I'm not sure we do as well as we should at understanding and appreciating and celebrating other cultures. You know, it's very important for us to celebrate our diversity, because if we manage our diversity well, it will enrich us. But if we don't manage our diversity well, it will divide us. Well, DoDEA educators understand that, because they work in that milieu all the time. And I think one thing that I would like to see is DoDEA sharing more of its experience with school systems across the nation, and that's a positive. And I think also that I think DoDEA has a great deal to share with school systems about people who are deployed. You know, when you go to Germany, or you go to the Mediterranean, or you go to Japan or Korea or Okinawa or Guam, you have people who are being deployed, and they're coming home. In some cases, unfortunately, they don't come home, or they come home in a different condition than when they left. And I think that you have learned so many things in DoDEA schools about helping people who are returning from a deployment find their way back into the community, back into their families, because they've had these divergent experiences. And I think there is a richness there that just needs to be shared. And I know that's what you do all the time. And I guess what I'm saying is Way to go. We need even more
Well,
of it.
thank you, Gary. And our teachers really work and our principals really work hard at it because it is an issue that impacts us significantly. Not only do we have our primary teaching mission, but we have a secondary mission of taking care of families. It's critical.
And I would add to that, Frank, I think that probably the DoDEA schools are an example, one of the best examples I could find of soft diplomacy. When you have people who are deployed in various parts of the world, when you have teachers and administrators and others who serve in DoDEA schools, and you have those students in communities, and I know there's a real sense of the importance of interconnected cultures, but I think that is a form of diplomacy that will buy us understanding that you just can't get in other ways that may be less personal. So I think that's another one of the magnificent investments that we accrue from DoDEA schools.
So it gives us an edge in staying in touch with those.
Yeah, it really does. And then the other thing, if you don't mind, there's one more suggestion I would have, and that is, I think it would be healthy for DoDEA to help local school systems across this country and perhaps others with intake of kids back into local school systems within the 50 United States and the territories, because often these kids come back with all kinds of wonderful experiences all over the world, and I'm not sure they're always appreciated as much as they should be. And I think there are a lot of teachers and administrators across the country who would welcome that kind of help.
Well, we've always known that we have great kids that come from great families, and so it's nice to see that somebody else recognizes that as well.
They're terrific.
Gary, I want to end up today just talking about what are the benefits for our principals of staying in touch with these trends that you've talked about, not only our principals, but our leaders across the organization and our military leaders who work with us as well.
Yeah, I would say this for school systems, for colleges, universities, for the military, for businesses, for a country. By paying attention to and becoming familiar with trends and issues, we demonstrate, in fact, that we're in touch. If we understand trends and issues, people will say about us, they're in touch. If we don't understand trends and issues, what do they say about us? They say we're out of touch. So that's one of the benefits. The other is that it can keep any organization fresh, energized, open to new ideas. When you ask people to think about the implications of trends or to regularly identify issues, that's like giving people permission to be even more aware of the world around them. So it energizes the system. The other thing that it can do, if not only are we paying attention to the 16 trends we wrote about in our book, but identifying trends through our scholarship, through reading, through listening to people, it can help us identify problems and opportunities. And you know how that scale goes. If you have a problem and you don't deal with it well, it can become a crisis. If you don't deal with the crisis well, it can become a catastrophe. Absolutely. And I think, to borrow from Malcolm Gladwell, I think it can help us identify tipping points early. It can help us identify issues early enough when issues are emerging so that we can manage the issue before the issue ends up managing us. So those are a few of the benefits, and of course there are many others, but I think it's just so important as educators to be leaders in any community we serve in staying in touch with those forces that are impacting the whole of society. I believe that every educator ought to strive to be an intellectual leader in the community where we serve, and that in part means staying in touch.
Well, thank you, Gary, very much for helping our teachers and our principals stay in touch. I'm sure they'll enjoy hearing your comments, and we greatly appreciate you coming in today. And I hope when you're in town in the future and you have a little bit of time, you'll come back and talk more with us about the 16 trends.
I'll look forward to it, Frank, and thanks to all of the great DoDEA educators who do so much for all of us.
Thank you so much for your time, Gary. I'm Frank O'Gara, and you're in the chat room.